Hello, this is Yehna.
And this is Jessie.
We are excited to be back with another episode. We wrestled through many different questions and we wanted to invite you and continue this conversation about friendships. And today we will end this series by discussing our journey of processing friends we already let go. So, welcome and join us
At
at
the
the
table,
table.
we're really ending this series with woof, a bang. This is a tricky one to end on,
Yeah.
but it seems the most appropriate because we've kind of went in order of, what do we do with friends who are in different seasons, then friends that are in a tightrope, and then now friends that we have already let go. So this is going to be heavily based on our experience. And yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I think it's gonna bring back some memes that I don't want to relive.
Same.
But it'll be good for us to talk through it. So some of the things that we're gonna go over are friends who already let go, like what brought us to letting go of those friends, and then how are we processing it or not processing it now, lifetime. Where do we stand now in our past decisions and how that's affected us? And then what if letting go, we weren't the person to let go, but it was done to us?
Mm.
Let's start with the first one. Here we go. The first one is what brought us to let go. Now, maybe off the top of your head, you guys can think like, oh, this person's toxic for me, this person gossips, or this person
Mm.
is manipulative, or sometimes it's not that extreme,
Mm-hmm.
it's that subtle like ways that build, oh, no, no, that's like fine. We can still be
Right.
friends. Those are the hardest because it's not clear red flags.
Mm.
And I can tell that that's been both of our experiences with coming to that conclusion of letting go. And that's why it doesn't make it any easier. Yana, what was it like and what brought you to those decisions to let go? And what did that letting go look like
Mm.
initially?
I really like how you said it's or prefaced and explained how it's not always this defining red flag that's like waved in your face. It really is the subtle buildup of possibly turning a blind eye or even just being oblivious, or maybe it didn't sit with you well, but you knew that it wasn't big enough for you to essentially make a big deal out of it or maybe even process it. I will say that is so true to how a lot of my decisions ballooned out of. But it was just the constant reaffirming, whether usually it was very indirect and implied, whether they meant it or not. A lot of time, probably not meaning it, but it's that reaffirming of being misunderstood and taken advantage of, not being valued. And it obviously took form in so many different ways and so many different actions or lack thereof. Mm, a lot of times my nature of being lenient and easygoing is, yes, I take pride in that because I do find myself being more flexible than maybe the average threshold. And that's not because I'm a pushover. I thought I was. I mean, there was a season I was, but to an extent, it was because I truly didn't mind it. And it was not because it was me just letting people run over me. It was just that is a level that I didn't mind. But I think it was when people would constantly try to push back the easygoingness to a point where it was no longer just, oh, Yena's easygoing. It's more like Yena is just easy to take advantage of, easy to make the center of ridicule, easy to put as a target of putting me in the sideline. And yes, this sounds harsh, and it's like, Yena, how was that subtly implied? It was. Whether they meant it or not. And I think that hurts more that it came out of unintentionality, because basically what they're doing is they're not taking a second to think, oh, maybe I need to see where Yena's at. Because people who decided to get to know me and sit with me and almost let me open up will know my tendencies. And yes, I'm learning to take initiative, but in the midst of me learning, are learning with me instead of assuming. What made me so brokenhearted is that they didn't take the time to check with me
Mm.
and assumed I was okay with that. And I think because that was reaffirmed over and over again, I got to a point where I believed that for myself and felt
Mm.
so guilty of wanting to have one foot out the door. When in reality, I think it was in some sense a protection of, Yana, you need to know that you are valuable. Obviously, I'm pretty oversimplifying it, and there are just so many things I desire to justify, especially for the other side, because it just really makes them look bad. And I really want to say that's not my intention. It's more right now where I stand is I needed to essentially make a decision for myself. Yana, are you valuable enough that you can take a step back?
Mm. Like, do you respect yourself enough to know that you deserve better and that you don't
Mm-hmm.
deserve this kind of treatment, whether that was intentional or non-intentional? So then, yeah, my question before I share my part is, what do you do then when a friend is completely unaware of their actions and their effects of it on you?
Mm.
What
I
do you
mean,
do then?
and that's really hard because my tendency is to, again, brush it over.
Right.
I think where it hurt and where, but also at the same time, where my final decisions would be made was when I do finally muster up the gut wrenching courage to say, this is where I'm at, this is where I'm hurting. Can you sit with me with this? Can we work through this with me? And they nod yes physically, but moving forward, I see no change, just empty apologies. And it breaks my heart because sometimes they come up to me and they're like, no, I will change. Like, I will change for you. It's like, it's not that I need you to be a different person. I want you to actually like just see me.
Mm.
And I don't know if that's like selfish of me, but when I don't see that effort, I think it's really hard for me to say because I feel so conflicted. It feels very like self-centered of me to say this, but I just can't help but have to make that decision. Yana, you need to get out.
Mm. That's what's tricky is a lot of the times all people want or all the hurt that stems from is from people not feeling seen or heard or understood. And that cuts deep and it's hard to recover from.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was gonna say it sounds so extreme, at least for me, hearing that of like, well, why does that have to end a friendship? Like,
Mm-hmm.
why do you have to cut this person out of your life? I'm the one that keeps the peace. I like peace. I don't want there to be tension, and it's not worth it, is what
Mm-hmm.
I kept telling myself and honestly making excuses constantly of, oh, well, this person is going through a hard time in their life, or,
Yeah.
oh, this is the last thing that's on their mind. They don't have capacity to think about our friendship and
Mm.
be a better or show up in a better way. Or like, oh, but this person is unaware that they are this way. So, I mean, I just got to suck it up and I just got to adjust. And it's like, okay, no, uh, if you do not feel valued, if you do not feel heard, you need to say something about it. And I think what I was lacking is knowing that I need to communicate that part. I can't just be in my pity party corner sulking the whole time. Yes, there is a balance of like, okay, if they're unaware, like so unaware, then there might be something they need to look at within themselves. But if I'm not being a good friend and communicating that, even though it might create tension, even though, it might be uncomfortable, I at least need to make an effort to do that if I'm going to just fully let go of someone. And doing that has not gone well for me. Sometimes it has, sometimes it hasn't. Like you said,
Yeah,
some
girl.
people will say they might change and then nothing happens. And I think just knowing that entering into that, it could go two ways of yes, it could go well, but then there's no change, or no, they can't receive it well, and then it won't, nothing will change. Like it just seems like such a risk. So letting go is something that I'm still working on.
Mm.
I'm not as good as it. Like to keep the peace. I'm a people pleaser. So, but in the recent years, I think where the growth has been is that I've been able to at least voice it and have enough self-respect to mm, say something about it because I'm not good at advocating for my needs. Anything to add to like why, what led us to letting go?
There's such a complexity in
Mm-hmm.
that. And for
It's
each,
case by case.
yes, exactly, for each person in mind, there were different reasons, but for the purposes of this podcast, to put it under an umbrella, it really came down to, Jenna, you need to sometimes bite the bullet and make a decision for yourself for that season. Just because you're leaking in one place doesn't mean you need to leak in every other area.
So then how are you processing that currently?
This is the part I don't like.
Or not?
This is the part I don't like. I mean, Jessie knows this. It comes up in waves. It really does. Because sometimes it's quite literally doesn't even cross my mind. It the last thing on my list, just nothing. We said this before, but friendships breakups are really one of those most overlooked pains.
100%.
Maybe I'm being dramatic, but it is more painful than an actual like a girlfriend boyfriend breakup,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
this person you've allowed them to enter into a space you might have not let other people in. At least those are the people usually that I let go. Unfortunately. It's like these are the people that I finally am like, here's my heart, don't kill it.
And they're like, knife, stab, 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 stab.
But I didn't know. Yeah. Anyway, but
Mm.
how am I processing it? They're just like I said, kind of like a relationship breakup. It really can be as simple as you listen, you like shuffle through music and a song pops up and you're like, what the heck? Well, that's a
That's happened
thought.
to me.
Yep, like why is
Ooh.
that in my brain? Or I think a lot of times for me, it's like cafes, which is painful because I love cafes. Those are the places that pop up a lot because it's a space, a kind of a sacred space. And you're like, this is so nice. That person would have loved this place too.
Yep.
And it can literally even be a change of a chapter and thinking, wow, that person would have been one of the first people I would have told this to. And for that to no longer be, I mean, obviously that intensity has simmered down as time goes by, but it's just as painful when it does happen. And I think it's worse when it simmers down finally and you're like, I'm good. And then months pass by and you're like, wow, I'm actually good. And then out of nowhere, it punches you. Or you might see them somewhere on social media go through such a huge thing in their
Life.
life.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if it's something they've talked about for years and you're thinking, wow, I would love to tell them, I am so proud of you.
Don't make me cry. Why are you doing this?
Because as much as I had to make that painful decision of letting go, there's a grief that will follow me for hopefully not forever. But I think something I love hearing, and as painful as it is that grief is, how do I say it? Grief is basically a representation of your love for that person. As much as, yes, there was pain in the letting go, in that decision, there probably was a time where I was bitter. However, I had to come to a hard decision of changing that internal narrative from bitterness to one that I needed to look inwardly, saying, was I a good friend to them?
Hmm.
And when I finally had to stop and think about that and shuffle through my answers for that, I could finally grieve the
Mm.
loss of that relationship. There's a lot, but yes, I'm processing it, but that's literally what I'm doing. It's still processing. Nah, ing. It is a moving forward. It's not a being verb. It's going forward, y'all. It's not ending here.
Going for it and sometimes taking like a full jump back
Yep.
and slowly having to go through the same steps over, you
Like
know?
right now.
Like right now. And time heals, but
Mm,
sometimes you get that sucker punch, you know?
mm,
I loved all the examples you gave because they're so relatable. And when those moments pop up, you got to sit in it a little bit and be like, ah, right.
yeah.
This feeling.
This feeling is terrible.
Yeah. And you're like, moving on. Do not want to process it. That's why I numb myself. Oh man. Yeah.
Hmm.
Especially for people like me. I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but it's so hard for me to let go of the past and like what it was and what it could be now if things were just to stay the same and if I could control one part of it and this argument didn't happen or if I were just more aware of this like this could have happened,
Mm,
and it's all these what ifs, but
mm,
getting to a place where I am trusting myself and the gut feelings and the gut decisions that I've made, like trusting that and then knowing that like my life is better and healthier with certain people not in it. It took a while to accept. Like it's a new concept because again, it's that breaking of the peace. It's a loss. It's grief. I'm like,
mm.
how is that better for me? You know,
Yeah.
processing that through is very foreign. That's all I wanted to add to that part. But yeah, it definitely sucks. Like opening up a
Mm,
text and typing that person's name and you're like, dang it, I can't text this person anymore like I
yeah.
used to.
Nope. Mm-hmm.
Shifting and adjusting your heart is tricky.
Yeah. Just one
Yeah.
more thing to add to that, just a
Hmm.
thought that popped into my head was I think now having fostered friendships surrounding and putting Jesus in the center and
Yeah.
learning that. I'm not saying that we never talked about Jesus with my friends. And I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying, oh my gosh, we were like so weak in our faith. I mean, yes, at some point on our season, yes. But beyond that, now I know what I was missing more so than regret is kind of like what you're saying, Jesse, is like to rewind. And if I had the same fervor, I wouldn't have put it in my hand and in my control
Mm.
to fight so hard to figure this out.
Mm.
I would have fought still. I would have fought with Jesus by my side.
Yes. And also, though, I think that's what makes it even more painful is when you do have Christian friends where you have like bared your soul and you know that you both equally love God and for it to not work out or somehow have to end. What the heck?
Yeah,
That's even more painful because
so true.
you have the same like similar values and I think that's when we're reminded of just sin, not being able to see beyond our hurt, not being able to believe in the best of another person, understanding that we're broken and we just cannot, even if we have Jesus in us, sometimes we screw up and sometimes they screw up. That's
Yeah,
what makes it, I think, even harder, you
it's
know?
so true. I think that makes it
Yeah.
definitely adds a different type of layer.
Yeah, for sure.
Essentially, what
We
is happening is we're still processing and we're still like, wow, we have not opened that can of worms in a while.
Not gonna lie, this is like the first episode in a very long time where we're like marinating in what we're talking about. Like we're usually like chop, 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 chop. But this time we're like, whoo, let's really talk this through. But let's move on to like the effects. Like where do we stand now? How has that affected how we show up in other friendships? And how has that affected our internal process of what it looks like to let go of friendships?
Mm,
Simply put, I think because of my past experiences and decisions, it's just made me very rigid and closed off and very selective of who I let into my life, which, not gonna lie, being that middle schooler or high schooler that was walked all over or taken advantage of, I think coming from there, I have a valid reason, right? Of like, I need to set good boundaries. I'm not going to be taken advantage of, and this is how I'm going to do it. However, it just has not allowed me to be open to friendships that I don't see moving forward. And I'm not allowing God to like work through different opportunities. I just kind of like select the doors that I want to walk through.
Yeah.
And I think that's very like I'm missing out on something that could be great. But because of my hurt and because of my walls up, I'm not able to, yeah, be open to what God
Mm,
might be leading me to.
mm,
So I feel like that's the biggest effect that it's had on me now is I'm just much more judgmental, simply put.
mm.
And I'm not proud of that at all.
Ooh, it really goes back to how it's so difficult to make friends in our 20s. And
For sure.
also just like it makes us think a lot through the ones that we have now. Anyway,
But
yes.
then again, because we filtered and have like refined and have chosen people in our life
Yeah.
for it to not work out again, it sucks.
Mm,
Okay,
a
sorry. We can't
little a
we
little too
can't
much.
we can't keep going in circles. I guess we have to move on. Sorry. Go, Rihanna, go.
I'm cutting that out. So I'm just kidding. JK. For me, for now, where I stand, I still am at peace with the decision I've made. But again, like I said before, it's that grief that I think I have a hard time letting sit well with me. But out, but like Jessie said, because we filtered and filtered and filtered, whether it was through our choice or by natural selection, um, I can confidently say I do have 3 a.m. friends near me and ones
Mhm.
who see my intentions and my heart. And I'm not simply there to be displayed as a friend or something to be like a position to fill, but they allow me to actually be their friend. And so I don't have this looming regret of, oh my goodness, I could have done this better and this better and this better. I did initially, don't get me wrong. And there are just so many times I've replayed my words over and over and over and over again. But I think right now where I stand and where I think I want to be and don't want to be, but know I need to be when it comes to the topic of friends that I let go is allowing that grief to be there because it's almost there as a reminder that fighting for a friend is worth it no matter the outcome. But does that mean it's easy to make a friend? No. Is it easy to have a friend? No.
Nope.
But again, that's why it goes back to it's a good reminder. What are we working for? What are
Yeah.
we
What are we fighting for?
fighting for? Yeah, not working. No, not working. What are you valuing in them? Are you the 3 a.m. friend for them? Are you
Mm.
showing up for them? Are you seeing their intentions before their actions and just really checking in with myself over and over and over again? Yena, are you showing up before you think about if they're doing that? Is this just anger or just as in justified, just anger, or are you just being emotional about it because your needs are not being met? A real big checking point when this type of grief arises. That's where I'm at.
Hmm. Agree with everything you said.
Yeah.
Nothing more to add here. I'm just, it's like finally hitting me. I'm like sitting in it and I'm like, ah,
I don't like this.
right. Haven't thought about this in a hot second.
I know, it's so true.
Are you ready to wrap this up though? I think I'm like, whew, maxed out here.
I am ready to wrap it up.
Wow, we're ending it on a great note here. The last one is what if it was done to us?
Mm.
Lovely.
Pain.
Pain, straight freaking pain.
Looking yourself in the mirror.
This is what keeps me up at night, guys. Like, this is what used to keep me up at night and would not allow me to sleep. And I love
It's
my
so
sleep.
real. It's
Yeah.
so real.
And I think it hurts because, first of all, well, it hurts my pride
Yes.
because I'm like, okay, I pride myself in being a good friend for always having good intentions.
Mm,
But the fact that someone would give up on me, that's what hurts the most is if you just like stuck it out with me and if you just gave me a chance to work this out, I
mm,
promise you, everything will be cleared up. Yes, we might be different. We might have differences. We might, think or operate differently. But if you know my heart, you would know that I care so much. I know that part can be overwhelming, and that is one reason why people have left me. I get it.
oh,
But
that got too
I,
real.
it's so real. It's such a typical two moment there. But like, I just genuinely really care.
Mm.
And so for that to be rejected or for that to not be received or wanted at all, freaking hurts me. That's all I'm gonna say. Okay, you can go.
That's all I'm gonna say. It kills. Just
It
kidding.
kills.
I think for me, because I mean, obviously, a lot of the things will be reflected in the perspective of our own fear, and so my fear being misunderstood, taken advantage of, and straight up not giving me the time and space to even let my heart shine is I can't help but probably go into overthinking mode. I will be in my head of the question of what have I done wrong? What did I not convey correctly? Or what are things I could have done better? This looming fear of, oh my gosh, what if I'm the problem of not understanding them? What if I didn't show compassion? What if I didn't empathize like hard enough, deep enough to have seen their side? And I selfishly thought I knew it all. What if I'm the one who misunderstood them and took advantage of them and undervalued them? That is not okay.
You go through every possibility of like,
Mm.
what have I done?
And the
Yeah.
worst part is sometimes you pinpoint it and you're like, shoot,
Oh shoot.
oh shoot.
You're like, fair, fair.
Mm-hmm. But I think what really gets me is if someone were to ghost me and leave me, which is so hypocritical of me because let's be real, I'm a pro. JK. What will sting is basically what will go through my head is that I wasn't worth their breath to explain why they're leaving. It's not the act of leaving that I'm afraid of. It's that they didn't take the time to even explain why. And that makes me think, shoot, Yena.
Like
Oh,
you
what
didn't
did you do?
mean, you didn't mean anything.
Yeah,
Great.
you didn't mean anything. And then, which makes me also reflect and really tear me down because basically that's what I did.
Oof.
Yeah, not everybody, but unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
We're just gonna leave that there for you guys to now tear apart. But basically, we wanted to say is friendships are hard, and therefore we need to fight even harder for them.
And we're making this friendship series because, especially being in our mid 20s, navigating all that life's thrown at us. I mean, this is like the most crucial decade of our lives, and it's hard. And doing life besides friends that you trust and you're pouring into, that is going to make the world's difference. And
Mm,
that's worth fighting for, and that's worth
so
being
true.
intentional and taking initiative for.
Amen. That's so well said.
You don't have to do this life alone. You don't have to. And yeah, it's just so much less lonely when you're doing it with someone else. Have you thought about, do I have true friends that are there for me and like see me and love me? Because a lot of the times that gives you
Game
so much
changer.
joy too. Yeah.
There's a lot of things we could go on about, but essentially, just as we have been brain dumping and processing literally as we record, I hope that you guys really feel challenged to reflect on your own friendships and ways that you may need to stand firm for yourself, or on the flip side, really humble yourself and reflect on maybe what are things that I might have done. I hope you guys enjoyed this series as much as we didn't. What? I mean, much as we did. Yeah. Thank you, as always, for listening. And yes, we're on Spotify and on YouTube, and we will give all of our updates on Instagram. We can't wait to share more with you on our next episode. And until then,
Bye.
bye.